The night appeared peaceful and ordinary, yet inside one quiet apartment, a terrible horror was silently taking shape. Those walls would soon stand as mute observers to a gruesome crime, concealing a secret far too grim to surface immediately. What occurred there was so shocking that it would require months for the complete truth to emerge. Shannon Graves spent that evening oblivious to the fact that it would mark the end of her existence. When morning arrived, no alerts were sounded, and no one yet grasped that she had vanished. As days turned into weeks, life carried on around them, unmoved and unaltered. But for those who genuinely cared about Shannon, a growing discomfort took root. Something felt deeply wrong. She had disappeared without any word, her calls going unanswered, her presence abruptly wiped away. Every ignored ring and every elapsed day heightened their dread. What began as a quest for basic explanations gradually shifted into a far more chilling awareness. This wasn't merely a case of someone missing. It was the consequence of something much darker. A twisted tale fueled by lies, envy, and a frantic attempt to erase a person entirely. Yet justice tends to rise eventually, no matter how thoroughly the facts are concealed. In due course, the meticulously buried reality would start to fracture, and the horrifying particulars would come into sharper view. Shannon Graves entered the world on November 4, 1988, in Ohio, USA. She grew up under the care of her mother, Christine Graves, a resilient and loving single mother who worked hard to create a secure home. Later, Christine met and fell in love with a man named Ronnie, and together they formed a new family unit. From the start, Ronnie embraced the role of father to Shannon, providing her with direction, safety, and unwavering affection. Shannon accepted him completely, developing a connection as deep and genuine as any biological parent-child bond. Those familiar with Shannon described her as possessing a soft soul and an inherently nurturing disposition. She exuded warmth, empathy, and a quiet gentleness that naturally attracted others. In 2016, she achieved her cosmetology license, a significant milestone that brought her immense pride and optimism. To Shannon, this wasn't simply career progress. It symbolized a fresh start and an opportunity to advance after a challenging and unstable early life. Her friends affectionately called her Star, a name that captured her vibrant energy and the positivity she shared with everyone. She was known for her liberated outlook, her straightforwardness, and her generosity, consistently placing others ahead of herself and making a memorable impact on all who crossed her path. However, Shannon's profound empathy sometimes led her astray, drawing her into decisions that caused suffering, particularly in her romantic life and her battles with substance issues, which worsened following the heartbreaking death of her mother. Those nearest to her noticed a recurring issue: she often formed deep attachments to men who proved destructive to her. Whether due to bad luck or an unconscious attraction to chaotic, problematic individuals, the results were frequently painful. Nevertheless, despite these hardships, Shannon never viewed herself as broken. Obtaining her cosmetology license restored her drive, and she was resolved to take charge of her future and create something worthwhile from her accomplishments. She felt prepared at last to leave behind her history and embrace a tomorrow brimming with potential. Ronnie and her friends witnessed her remarkable endurance firsthand, seeing how she persevered through sorrow, bereavement, and letdowns. Shannon had overcome more than many, carrying an inner fortitude that motivated those around her. Sadly, that resilience faced another severe trial when her choices went awry in a fatal moment. Her life intersected with Arturo Nervosa, a man who would alter everything. Hailing originally from Puerto Rico, Arturo possessed charm, allure, and a strong passion for music. Outwardly, he seemed captivating and gifted. Beneath that facade, however, he kept his private world tightly sealed, disclosing almost nothing about his true self. That secrecy was probably deliberate. Arturo's unwillingness to open up about his history arose from a lengthy and troubling record of criminal activity spanning many years. In 2004, he faced his initial arrest for offenses involving assault and property destruction, signaling the onset of an escalating pattern. Mere months afterward, he encountered more severe consequences, charged with fleeing custody and obstructing official actions. By 2006, the accusations had intensified, including felony evasion after a high-speed chase and, later that year, aggravated arson. Even following incarceration, his legal problems persisted. In 2008, he was arrested again, this time for trespassing. His difficulties with the law extended into the following decade. After an eviction, Arturo encountered further charges in 2010, among them weapons violations and illegal entry. Court records painted a picture of a man repeatedly entangled in unlawful conduct, turning to crime as a means of getting by. Despite this hidden past, when Shannon and Arturo started their relationship in the summer of 2016, things seemed steady at first, even encouraging. Shannon gradually felt more at ease with him, eventually bringing him into her inner circle. As her confidence in him grew, she spent increasing amounts of time at his residence, not yet realizing the peril she was entering. That same year, Shannon adopted a puppy, a small yet profound source of solace, happiness, and loyal companionship. The dog swiftly became central to her world, delivering steadiness and love amid her efforts to reconstruct her existence. As the holiday season neared, she gathered with her family for a joyful celebration complete with shared food, laughter, and gift-giving. It represented a time of unity and normalcy, brimming with hope and vitality. No one there could have foreseen that this would be their final family gathering. Just 2 months later, Shannon unexpectedly encountered her sister Debbie DePaul while accompanied by Arturo. Their exchange was brief yet touching. They discussed Debbie's forthcoming birthday in March, and Shannon revealed she had already begun preparations for it. That small revelation highlighted how deeply family continued to matter to her. But when Debbie's birthday came, Shannon failed to appear. Initially, her absence struck them as odd but not immediately worrisome. The family supposed she was delayed or occupied and would contact them soon. As time passed without word, worry mounted. Shannon never arrived, never phoned, and never even sent a greeting. An uncharacteristic quiet that signaled the start of a much graver understanding. When Shannon also missed the Easter gathering the next month, the family's concern escalated into real fear. This was no isolated incident. It formed a pattern impossible to dismiss. With every additional week, their apprehension grew. In desperation, Ronnie reached out to Arturo personally. Arturo stated that he and Shannon had split up and that she had relocated to Cleveland with another man. His story rang false, particularly when Ronnie and Debbie attempted to confirm it and could not contact Shannon through any means. Unwilling to settle for evasive responses, the family took matters into their own hands. They visited Shannon's apartment in search of clues about her whereabouts or fate. What they found only amplified their terror. Her car remained parked there, undisturbed, and her phone had been abandoned. 2 items Shannon would never have left behind voluntarily. Even more disturbing was the disappearance of her dog, the companion she cherished and seldom parted from. Around that time, Arturo was arrested on drug charges, a fact that further disturbed the family. Days stretched into weeks of anguish, bewilderment, and restless nights as they awaited answers that remained elusive. At last, in June, unable to bear the limbo any longer, Debbie formally reported Shannon missing, launching an official police inquiry and initiating the pursuit of the truth her family had long dreaded. Shannon's loved ones readily admitted her history with addiction, yet they insisted on one vital point: she had never before gone so long without communication. Regardless of her struggles, she always maintained contact, especially with those dearest to her. Her extended silence was entirely unlike her and profoundly troubling. As the probe commenced, law enforcement urged the community to provide any helpful details. Meanwhile, they conducted their own searches, checking hospitals, jails, and detention facilities in hopes of locating her unharmed. Every effort yielded the same result: no trace of Shannon whatsoever. Reconstructing her final movements presented a major obstacle for detectives, primarily because so much time had elapsed since her last known contact. Months of mystery had blurred any evident path. Still, investigators persisted, obtaining her phone records and closely reviewing her relationships and routines. Her family noted that Shannon occasionally spent extended periods with her partner and might temporarily drop out of touch, prompting police to scrutinize Arturo more intently. When interviewed, he merely restated his earlier claim to Ronnie that they had parted ways and she had moved on. His version lacked specifics and generated more uncertainty than clarity, complicating an already difficult investigation. There existed no means to substantiate Arturo's narrative. No proof backed his assertion, and no sign appeared of the supposed new partner Shannon was allegedly with. As suspicions intensified, detectives expanded their scope, delving further into her previous relationships. That led them to an ex-boyfriend named John. The find immediately drew their interest, presenting what appeared to be a promising avenue. Further inquiry revealed that John not only operated his own business but also possessed a criminal record tied to drug distribution. His arrest and imprisonment had effectively ended his relationship with Shannon. Friends remembered her devastation upon discovering his conviction, recounting her sorrow, fury, and profound sense of betrayal. The matter grew more intricate when authorities learned John had been freed from prison shortly before Shannon's presumed disappearance. When police located and interviewed him, he denied any recent contact. He informed detectives he hadn't seen Shannon since February, noting that in their final exchange, she had spoken of reconciling with Arturo. Once more, this pointed suspicion toward the man who stayed central to the inquiry. His account implied the relationship between Shannon and Arturo was less harmonious than it seemed. Still, John conceded he retained feelings for her during that last talk, leaving investigators with two potential persons of interest but lacking solid proof. Detectives urgently needed a breakthrough. When Shannon's phone records at last became available, authorities anticipated guidance, yet they provided scant illumination beyond indicating she attended work normally in late February before her phone was abruptly shut off. The number had been reassigned afterward, and roughly concurrently, all activity on her credit cards ceased. The case had hit a discouraging impasse. What investigators remained unaware of was that revelations were approaching, though in the most gruesome form conceivable. On July 30, a resident of Youngstown dialed 911 to report a horrifying and macabre find. The caller described human remains located inside black trash bags. Most alarmingly, the head was absent. First responders promptly notified police, who reached the caller's residence, a man named Kenny and his wife Jill. As forensic specialists began their examination of the remains, the couple was brought in for questioning. They stated that the freezer holding the body parts belonged to a friend who had lately experienced a power outage at his place. Approximately a week prior, this friend had requested they store the freezer in their basement, explaining it contained meat he wished to preserve. On July 29, Jill planned spaghetti and meatballs for supper, deciding to use some meat from the freezer and replace it afterward. Upon approaching, she noticed it was locked but paid it little mind initially. Their friend had always been a bit unusual, after all. Undaunted, Jill fetched a screwdriver, unscrewed the lock, and forced it open without difficulty. Rather than the anticipated supply of frozen food, however, she encountered stacks of black garbage bags and a bucket, all giving off a revolting, decaying stench. Terror gripped her. She quickly closed the freezer and summoned her husband at once. When Kenny arrived, they warily inspected one bag and were appalled to uncover a severed human foot. Since Kenny and Jill were interviewed apart and their stories aligned exactly, they were swiftly eliminated as suspects. Authorities then shifted focus to the individual who had delivered the freezer to their home, Anthony Gonzalez. Kenny recounted meeting Anthony years before through a shared acquaintance. They had connected over music. Anthony possessed sound gear and had discussed recording rap tracks, though their contact remained sporadic, and Kenny never regarded him as a true friend. He portrayed Anthony as erratic and occasionally hostile. Despite the couple's complete assistance, the identity of the victim stayed unknown until forensic analysts uncovered a key detail: a scorpion tattoo on one foot. The tattoo corresponded to Shannon's, matching her zodiac sign. While further verification was necessary, it quickly became evident that the remains belonged to her. Investigators now confronted a nightmarish question: how and when had she ended up in that freezer? Not long after, Ohio's chief prosecutor conducted a press conference to address the case, which was swiftly developing into one of the most appalling and unsettling in recent history. Though the medical examiner could not establish the precise cause of death absent the head, Shannon's identity was verified via fingerprint comparison. Her family was shattered upon hearing the horrific destiny of their cherished daughter and sister. Months following her vanishing, the truth proved infinitely more monstrous than they could have feared. Amid their profound sorrow, Shannon's loved ones united to commemorate her life with a candlelight vigil in a beautiful nearby park. Speaking with the media, Debbie expressed her conviction that Shannon's spirit had attained tranquility and that the vigil aimed to celebrate her existence rather than dwell on grief. That night, numerous participants lit candles and sent lanterns skyward. Many wore shirts inscribed with tributes to Shannon. a dear friend vowed to uphold her essence, refusing to allow this horror to overshadow her legacy. Though her family shared that wish for justice, they could not hide their overwhelming anguish. Ronnie, too devastated to face cameras, confessed his grief surpassed expression. He had cherished Shannon as his own daughter and now longed for accountability. Meanwhile, authorities intensified their hunt for Anthony, and it soon emerged that Anthony Gonzalez was merely an alias. His true name belonged to someone police had already viewed as a suspect. As the inquiry into Shannon's disappearance advanced, fresh discoveries surfaced rapidly. Officials determined that Arturo had been involved with a woman named Katrina Layton, who had relocated into his residence merely 2 weeks after Shannon was last seen alive. Considering Arturo's extensive criminal background, police moved decisively to apprehend him. Both Arturo and Katrina were detained, and their home underwent a comprehensive search. Detectives located reddish stains on the walls, a knife, and instructions for the freezer in which Shannon's remains had been discovered. Kenny, who had previously thought his friend's name was Anthony, was stunned to learn Arturo's real identity. He wasn't the only one deceived, as Arturo often employed false names, presumably to obscure his history, which encompassed illegal drug involvement. During interrogation, Arturo stayed calm and repeatedly rejected any involvement in Shannon's death, asserting ignorance of her whereabouts and disassociating himself from the freezer. Katrina mirrored his denials, but their claims crumbled when police recovered a key from her possessions that matched the freezer's lock. This proof directly connected them to the offense, ensuring their continued detention as the probe advanced. Meanwhile, John, Shannon's former partner, assisted detectives by gathering more information through discussions with her acquaintances. From those talks, he discovered details about a bonfire event Arturo had joined, where a witness observed him burning personal belongings. When confronted, Arturo asserted the items were Shannon's clothing and that he destroyed them out of retaliation for claimed unfaithfulness. That evening, he was joined by a friend named Andrew Herman, and the pair persisted in incinerating the garments. Investigators subsequently inspected the location and recovered remnants from the fire, including a bracelet belonging to Shannon. As the inquiry continued, they reached out to a woman acquainted with Andrew and his wife, Michelle. She disclosed that Arturo and Katrina were behind Shannon's murder, while Andrew had aided in dismembering her body. According to this source, Katrina had long nurtured jealousy toward Shannon, a feeling said to be mutual. The case turned even more unsettling when neighbors recounted observing Katrina walking Shannon's dog and making minor purchases with her credit cards locally, indicating she had started assuming elements of Shannon's existence. Amid these stunning revelations, Ronnie passed away suddenly, never witnessing justice fulfilled. Debbie, crushed by loss, pursued counseling while tending to her younger brother and Shannon's adored dog. Meanwhile, both Andrew and Michelle were held pending trial. Authorities possessed considerable evidence that Michelle had intimidated witnesses in efforts to hinder the investigation and cover the crime. As the matter reached a grand jury, a clearer sequence of events crystallized on February 24, 2017. Arturo had killed Shannon, likely with Katrina present. Afterward, Arturo summoned Andrew and requested assistance in dismembering Shannon's body. The trio attempted to dissolve portions of her remains in sulfuric acid but lacked sufficient quantities to finish. They disposed of her head elsewhere while keeping other parts in the freezer, and certain remains were discarded in a still unknown site that authorities continue seeking. According to the principal prosecutor, Arturo was a small-time drug dealer driven by envy over Shannon's greater financial security. Katrina, meanwhile, sought to eliminate her rival to secure Arturo exclusively. Confronted with the prospect of capital punishment, all four defendants ultimately entered plea agreements. Arturo Novoa received a life sentence for Shannon's murder, while Katrina Layton was given 18 years. Andrew Herman received 12 years in prison, and Michelle was sentenced to 2.5 years, followed by a 6-month substance abuse program. Arturo later sought to appeal his sentence, but the initial decision stood. Committed to preserving Shannon's memory, Debbie established a social media page in her sister's honor, often posting pictures of her beloved dog. She also makes regular visits to Shannon's gravesite, where she maintains a touching custom. After tending the grass, Debbie paints a large pink heart next to the marker, Shannon's favorite color. In a local interview several years afterward, she recalled the instant she received the crushing news of the partial recovery of Shannon's remains. Yet it was during the worldwide health crisis, when she lost employment and found herself alone at home, that the complete burden of the loss truly settled upon her. With no diversions, Debbie had to face and work through the enormous grief she carried. Despite the crushing sorrow, she slowly discovered solace in permitting herself to mourn. Today, the detectives who contributed to bringing Arturo to justice persist in their efforts to recover the missing sections of Shannon's remains. Debbie holds hope that they will someday be found, all while sustaining her sister's memory through her devoted online memorial. If this case captured your interest, remember to like the video and subscribe to the Hidden Cases Files. We share crime stories every night. Until next time, stay alert, stay aware.